Can we stop for once, at least, maybe in our nation's history, stop trying to blame white on white crime on black people? Can we stop it for once, at least, please? Like, we all knew when Charlie Kirk was killed. We knew who this was going to be. We knew who the suspect was going to be, a young white man. We knew it. And yet, some people tried to spin this to say it was something else. And now threats are being lobbied against black students at universities. Black HBCUs are being threatened to be blown up. I think 4 of them had to shut down yesterday and today because they had to deal with bomb threats. It was never them. It's never been the black community. We always blame anybody else but ourselves. But the call is coming from inside the house. We are the problem. White on white crime, we are the problem. We have always been the problem. So let's for once stop trying to blame somebody else and look inward and try to address the actual problems that we are the ones creating upon ourselves. Anyway, thank you so much. Have a great day.
Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. In case you're new here, my name is Maren.
And I'm Maureen.
Right. So guys, how many of you remember the very famous terms, black on black crimes, right? It's hard to forget, being that this was the media propaganda that was being run for a very, very long time, that was used to box black people in one box, right?
Right. And in today's episode, we're going to be focusing on white crime, and the events that have happened this last week has really brought this incident to light. And this is why we usually insist and say, guys, that crime does not have color and crime is not specifically allocated to one group of people. This is what happened to Charlie has really proven these past few days.
Right, but we don't want to talk a lot. We first want you to watch what we've compiled for you and how black Americans and white Americans are reacting towards this term and why a lot of them want it to become a term that the media uses as often as they use the black on black crime.
Right, so right now, not only are people discovering the white on white crime, but people have started comparing white on white crime and just how rampant it is amongst the white community, just as how crime is as rampant in the black community.
A fair question would be, should we now start seeing white people, because of the white on white crime, should we now start seeing them the same way they used to look at black people and feel unsafe, the same way they used to talk about how black people should not come into certain neighborhoods because they're gonna be importing black on black crime into these said neighborhoods? But guys, let's watch what we prepared for you and then we come back and talk about it. You can let us know your thoughts and opinion on the comment section. Also, consider subscribing if it's your first time here, right? Let's watch and then we come back.
Said if the guy that chose Charlie was black, he would have seen, I mean, if there was a black person that just did that, there would have been a full-on race war in the streets right now. I mean, it's in Utah. Utah has a population of 2% for black people. So, as fucked up as it is, this was white on white crime, right?
Charlie Kirk was murdered at 12:23 p.m. on Wednesday. And what nobody is talking about is just 7 minutes later at 12:30 p.m., 470 miles away in Evergreen, Colorado, 16-year-old Desmond Holley pulled out a pistol and shot his high school up. He emptied the gun, reloaded, and kept shooting, and ended up shooting 2 students in the process. One is still in the hospital in critical care with life-threatening injuries, and the other one's been released. And Desmond, sadly, he turned the gun on himself and ate a bullet. Now, authorities are saying this 16-year-old kid was radicalized by some extremist groups. What groups those are, we don't know. I would be remiss if I didn't point out that as of 2023, Evergreen, Colorado had a population of 8,643 and only 73 black Americans lived in the community. And when it comes to crime, Evergreen almost has none. They have no reported murders in the last few years. And I hope white people are starting to realize that the booming epidemic of white on white crime is reaching their neighborhoods. And while this may be hard for some of you to hear, our version of gang shootings are school shootings. And have we become so desensitized to school shootings that we just don't talk about them anymore? It wasn't fair that those 2 students were shot, and it wasn't fair that their fellow students saw them shot. And it wasn't fair that Charlie Kirk was murdered, and it wasn't fair that that audience had to see him lose his life. A lot of people are in a lot of pain over what happened in Utah and Colorado, and that pain is real. And I think it would be wise to be mindful of that. Remember, in two different places, 500 miles apart, within a 10-minute span, a lot of people's lives were forever altered. They will never go back to the way they were. Let's be clear, I'm a lifelong supporter of the Second Amendment. I have seen and done and been around too much not to be. However, we have a mental health crisis where the tool or weapon of choice is a gun. And problems don't have solutions, they have compromises. And I sure wish we could find a few to make.
Charlie Kirk's death was white-on-white crime. Does it sound cruel? Almost unnecessary? Exactly, because crime has no color. Violence is not genetic. Hatred is not exclusive to skin tone. Yet the media has carved the words black on black crime as if blackness is the weapon. Or when a white man is gunned down by another white man, the headlines don't say white on white crime. Why did we ever think black on black crime was okay? Why is it okay to define black suffering in collective terms, but white suffering as individual heartbreak? The truth is simple. Crime is proximity. People hurt the people they live near, the ones they clash with, the ones they know. That's why you hear black on black crime, Asian on Asian crime, Latino on Latino crime. It was a label designed to stigmatize, not to explain. So maybe Charlie Kirk's death is a mirror. A reminder that when we reduce tragedy to skin color, we miss the point. We weaponize grief.
White man, fight back! 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 Fight back!
It appears that the call is coming from the inside of the house. The right side of the house. So, fight back against whom? You do realize that the assassinator was one of you, right? You know, the usual suspects when it comes to gunplay. Just saying, fight back against whom? Yourselves? Because if that's what it's giving, leave us out of it. We ain't got nothing to do with that.
We really got to see how things happened in the past in American history to black people when white people get angry at something that they don't have answers for. So let me tell you, you know what I'm talking about. So in a almost all white state of Utah, in an all white college, at an all-white rally, one white man killed another white man. And there were two big responses to that. One response were people on the left, Democrats, in the whole spectrum, right? Conservative, centrist, leftist, far left Democrat. The white people who inherit those spaces have been lauding Charlie Kirk for days now, have been praising him, and some have been online crying, and none have mentioned his abject, disgusting racism, his attacks on black women, on black intelligence, on black professionals, his attacks on the transgender and gay community, his attacks on immigrants, and his desire for public executions, and his vitriol about Dr. Martin Luther King, his talk about George Floyd, just disgusting racism. And this is from the left praising him. And then from the right, blaming, from the president to that googly FBI guy, blaming Antifa, blaming transgender people, calling people on the left scum and degenerates when they didn't even know who did it. And then went further. We had to, but something like 20 historically black colleges and universities, HBCUs, had to be shut down because of credible domestic terrorism threats. And then you have all these people online making videos and comments to black people and videos about black people threatening our lives. And why I say this is an example of America's history, because when a white person dies, particularly, but not exclusively, a white male, and white people don't have an answer for it, the immediate response in American history is to start blaming and attacking and killing black people. That's why our towns, hundreds of towns, not just Tulsa, Black Wall Street, hundreds of towns across the South and Midwest have been burned down because of white fury like we saw these past couple of days. And not just business districts and businesses, but churches, Christian churches, bombed and destroyed by white Christians. Our homes and, of course, our people in the form of public executions and lynchings, thousands, all because white people need an outlet for their anger, their misplaced anger. And that anger has too often been directed at black people. And you saw it live and in action these past couple of days. And what's Trump's response to that guy getting caught? He's sending the military to Memphis.
It's time for this country to get serious about white-on-white crime. There is a white-on-white crime epidemic that is taking out white people. I don't care about your statistics saying that it's down. I feel bad for white people. I feel afraid for white people. So there is a white-on-white crime problem. In reality, 80% of white people who are unalived via homicide are unalived via a white person. You are white, you are vastly more likely to be unalived by a white person than a black person. I know that doesn't fit with how Joe Scarborough feels about crime, how Jeanine Pirro feels about crime, how Trumpy feels about the roving gangs of youths in the streets. When they say roving gangs of youths, y'all hear black people. They talk about 13-year-olds. They're talking about black people. I'm not saying black people are doing this shit. I'm saying this is dog whistling. Crime is overwhelmingly intraracial. People generally commit crimes against people who are in proximity to them. And we're in a de facto segregated nation. So most white people live around white people. Same for black people. So white people, y'all are getting unalived by other white people. Your fear of black roving gangs is completely unfounded because overwhelmingly the most likely person to unalive you is Joe or John or Jim. Not Pookie or Kwame. But crime is always political. We are never talking about actual statistics. We are always talking about how white people feel about black people who are impoverished and their fear that they will try to do something violent to them. If white people were as afraid of the white people who are actually likely statistically to unalive them, as opposed to the black people who are statistically not likely to unalive them, then we might actually have something. But crime is generally middle-class people saying, oh my God, I'm afraid of getting robbed on the street by a young black person.
So you mean to tell me that the governor of Utah, Spencer Cox, spent all of this time while they were looking for the suspect praying that he was not from this country? Huh?
This bad stuff happens. And for 33 hours, I was praying that if this had to happen here, that it wouldn't be one of us. That somebody drove from another state, somebody came from another country.
Now, I'm going to let him finish. But what I'm hearing him say is that you were praying that it was someone who was a person of color or someone who migrated here from another country, aka an immigrant, because an overwhelming majority of the population in Utah is white. I don't know. It feels like coded language to me. And why were you praying for that? Why wouldn't you just be praying that the person who was responsible for killing Charlie Kirk was caught? That should have been the only prayer. Demographics and place of birth shouldn't matter. You should have been solely focused on the fact that somebody lost their life and you wanted to get justice for that person. No?
Sadly, that prayer was not answered the way I hoped for. Just because I thought it would make it easier on us if we could just say, hey, we don't do that here.
No, sir, that is not why. The reason you were praying for that is because you were ready to blame another demographic of people to continue to make yourself and the population that you serve look like they're good people. But the data says otherwise.
So first we had the Robin Westman incident in Minnesota with unloading on a Catholic school church. And just a couple hours ago, we just had Charlie Kirk get unalive during his speech at the University of Utah. And we may not know who the suspect is for the Charlie Kirk unaliving, but what we do know is, out in Utah, there's not a lot of folks who look like me. Honestly, I think we made a mistake. I think we might have deployed the National Guard into the wrong communities. Maybe we should deploy them into these white suburban communities. They look like they need it more than us. What y'all think? These white-on-white crimes are just getting out of hand.
Guys, welcome back. So I've noticed a lot of shootings that specifically happen because of white males, either teenagers or adults or children. Most of them are white males because we haven't heard of a lot of white women going to shoot up a joint. You know, we hear a lot of
White males
doing that, and I honestly do feel like this is a case that should be studied and studied really well, because I am trying to understand why this is the phenomenon.
The psychology behind it, definitely, because I'm trying to also understand, from the age of whatever the youngest shooter, we have to research that. I think the youngest shooter, how old they were and what gender they were. So is it fair to say that this could also, is it fair to say that we should also look at this in terms of gender? Is it fair to say that? I don't know, but guys, let us know your thoughts and opinion on that, because definitely these two cases, you look at it and it was white male, so there's definitely a problem in society, and there's a problem somewhere that needs to be studied, and to be studied well. Another thing I also wanted to say is, guys, there was a point where you didn't think white folks could do any wrong, because the media used to run with a lot of black stories out there, and they made out black people to be the worst villains in America. Right now, I feel like we've gotten to such a point where they can no longer be able to hide or contain or simmer down anything that white criminals do in America. Right now, it's blowing up in people's faces, and I feel like it feels this way because in the past, it never used to be broadcasted as much. And there was a point where even I feel like some cases really exposed the biasness in America when it comes to media, when they report when a teenager does something who is black and a white teenager does something, or early adulthood, when a 22-year-old white male does something or a 22-year-old black male does something, the 22-year-old white male, they're going to report it as the boy, the kid, that and that. But when they report for a black person, they're gonna use such terms as the man, such things, you know, to desensitize people towards how young the black person is, or such a thing, you know.
And I feel like for the longest time, the white community has, of course, gotten away with the number of crimes they've done when it comes to statistics being presented to the audience, because most of the time, white crime, it was hiding under the banner of black on black crimes, because just as you said, when reporting, people would focus on black crime because of how it was packaged, and sometimes forgetting the amount or the rate of crime that is happening in the white community because of also how it is reported, right? And this reminds me that I saw something very funny on TikTok today, which made me feel some type of way, right? It was a clip of a comparison between George Floyd's death and Charlie Kirk's death. And in Charlie Kirk's death, it was captioned how people react when white people react when one of theirs dies. People were doing a candle lighting ceremony and praying, right? And then when it comes to the George Floyd clip, they were showing that black community goes violent when someone from the community dies. To which I was thinking that person was trying to push a very dangerous ideology, because comparing these two situations, do you know the main reason why white people are not on the street, rioting right now? It's because, first of all, the murderer was caught, and he was caught very, very fast, number one. And number two, how could they go out in the streets to fight if it was one of their very own? It doesn't matter which political party he belongs in. The thing that matters the most is that he is white. How could they go to the streets to protest while it was a white person who unalived Charlie, right? And in George Floyd's case, it had to take the people marching out into the streets for the person who unalived George Floyd to be caught.
Yeah, that is a very good observation, and I hope people see it the way you see it, right? Because some people up to now, they can never look at this just because they're from different races. They can never look at those situations that way.
Right,
There's
so they
somebody
were
right
just-
now who believes the black population in America in its whole entirety is an evil population, right?
Because the person who also posted that video of comparing the two reactions, I do feel like he was trying to start something, and he was still pushing the notion or the propaganda that the media has sold that black people are violent people without giving the true context of both situations. You get what I'm saying?
Right. It's like, just like Maureen, you said, they're used to getting away with so much that it has gotten to a point where it's uncontainable. Because, guys, just picture this. You give birth to a child, and then they normally say, if you spoil the child, you spare the road, spoil the child, what is gonna happen? This child is gonna get to a point where now they have to go out into the world, and the world will teach them a lesson, right? It's the same thing. If you keep on, let's say even a child is misbehaving to a point where you need to correct them, and you fail to do that, and then they get used to not being punished or not facing consequences. It will get to a point where the things they are doing are gonna be bigger and bigger and bigger. I feel like that is what happened to the white population. They got away with those little things. Right now, it has gotten to a point where they're facing an epidemic. Why is it that it's only white males who go with pupils to schools, churches? Why is that happening? Because they never addressed the issues the way they handle it when it comes to the black population.
Right, but altogether, what we keep saying is that the black community right now is just seated down and observing as this situation boils very nicely. Because one thing I can say for sure is not even a black person will ever come to change what is happening in the white community if they themselves are not willing to change what is happening in the community, and if they themselves are not willing to start thinking in a different way from how they've been taught to think, and if they themselves also don't fight the systems that are the very systems that are harming them and causing even more harm to other communities.
Yeah, and also raise better children. White women raise better men, because
white men raise better men.
Exactly.
Both women and men raise better men.
At the end of the day, before a man becomes an adult, before a woman becomes an adult and thinks a certain type of way, they have to have come from somewhere. Like a child is born very pure, like they don't have an opinion, they don't have
a child is like buying a new book or a new book that has not been written on, and however he turns out up as an adult, that is the very chapters of what their parents have written on their books growing up.
So just take charge. I feel like society becomes what it is, and it starts at the family structure unit. Just raise better people out there, and I feel like it will be a better society. But for as long as you're not ready to give up your privilege, for as long as you don't
admit
think
the wrongs in the white community,
that's the biggest part,
because this week, especially after the suspect was caught, that is how it has brought rise and has made the term white on white crime, it has really made it blow up, and to some extent, I can't help but feel that even before everybody else knew who had unalived Charlie Kirk, and even before whoever started spinning the narrative that it was the Democrats who had done this or influenced this action, I just tend to feel like most white people already knew it could be a white person who did that. I find that to be very interesting. Because each and every one of them, when they speak, they feel like, they say they feel like they felt like it was a white person. Even the governor himself of Utah came out praying for 33 hours that it wasn't one of their own.
Being that
deep down, they always feel when it is one of their own. They know deep down, even if they try to spin narratives so that black people can somehow be involved in it, and also people of color can somehow be involved in it,
Right, they always know.
They do.
Being that in Utah, there's a very small percentage of black people, and that small percentage of black people, you can already imagine how limited their movement is. Being in a place you don't control, being in a place you feel like literally, if you are a minority, you don't even need to speak up and say you're a minority because the statistics show, So they must have known for sure. But guys, let us know what you think about this episode on the comment section. Also consider subscribing if it's your first time here, and we'll catch you on our next episode, right?
Right.